The woman with hollowed cheeks and eyes like shattered glass stood at the back of the saloon in Oklahoma City, scrubbing floors that would never come clean. Her hands raw and bleeding from the lye soap, her employer insisted she use without gloves. It was March 1882, and Willa Vaughn had forgotten what it felt like to lift her head without flinching, to speak without calculating whether her words would earn her a backhand across the face. She had been 17 when Marcus Vaughn bought her from her destitute father like livestock, 23 now, and every year had carved away another piece of the girl she used to be, until nothing remained but this hollow shell that moved through days without truly living them. The saloon owner, a greasy man named Hoskins who smelled of whiskey and sweat, kicked over her bucket deliberately as he passed, sending dirty water across the floor she had just cleaned. "Do it again," he snarled, "and this time do it right or you will not eat tonight." Willa did not argue. She had learned years ago that arguments only made things worse. She simply reached for the bucket with trembling hands, her body aching from the bruises Marcus had given her the night before when she had burned his supper. Her husband worked as a ranch hand when he felt like it, but mostly he drank away what little money they had and took his frustrations out on her with his fists and his belt and his cruel words that cut deeper than any blade. She had just refilled the bucket when the saloon doors swung open and a man walked in who made the air itself seem to change. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with sun-darkened skin and dark hair that fell past his collar beneath a well-worn hat. His eyes were a startling shade of blue-green, like the sky just before a storm, and they held an intelligence and kindness that seemed out of place in this rough establishment. He wore the clothes of a working cowboy, dusty from the trail, with a gun belt slung low on his hips. "Whiskey," he said to the bartender, his voice deep and measured. Then his gaze fell on Willa, still on her hands and knees in the dirty water, and something flickered across his face. Concern, maybe, or pity. She looked away quickly, not wanting whatever emotion it was. Pity never helped anyone. The cowboy's name was Wade Corrigan, and he had just driven a herd of cattle up from Texas to the stockyards in Oklahoma City. He was 28 years old, the son of a ranch owner who had taught him that a man's character was measured not by how he treated his equals, but by how he treated those who could do nothing for him. As he sipped his whiskey, he could not stop watching the woman on the floor, noting the way she made herself small, the way her hands shook, the purple bruise blooming along her jawline that she tried to hide beneath her hair. When Hoskins came back and grabbed her arm roughly, yanking her to her feet, Wade set down his glass with more force than necessary. "That is no way to treat a lady," he said, his voice carrying across the room. Hoskins laughed, a wet, ugly sound. "Lady, this is just Vaughn's wife. She works here to pay off his drinking debts. She is still a person deserving of respect," Wade said, standing now, his presence commanding attention. Several other patrons had gone quiet, sensing potential trouble. "Mind your own business, cowboy," Hoskins spat. "This does not concern you." Wade walked toward them with deliberate steps. Up close, he could see the woman was younger than he had first thought, probably not even 25, but life had aged her. There was something in her eyes, though, beneath all the fear and exhaustion, a tiny spark that had not quite been extinguished. "I am making it my business," he said calmly. "Let her go." Hoskins released Willa's arm but moved closer to Wade, puffing up like a threatened rooster. "You want to start trouble in my establishment? No trouble at all," Wade replied. "I just think the lady has worked enough for today." "How much does Vaughn owe you?" $50, Hoskins said quickly, seeing an opportunity. Wade knew it was probably closer to 20, but he did not argue. He pulled out a leather pouch from his vest and counted out $50 in gold coins, placing them on the bar. Consider his debt paid. The lady will not be working here anymore. Willa stared at this stranger in complete shock. No one had ever defended her. No one had ever stood between her and cruelty. Her voice came out as a whisper, hoarse from disuse. My husband will just gamble away more money. I will be back here next week. Wade turned those storm-colored eyes on her, and she felt something shift in her chest, like ice beginning to crack. Not if you do not go back to him, he said gently. The words hung in the air like a promise and a threat combined. Willa felt panic rise in her throat. I cannot just leave. He will find me. He will kill me. Where is he now? Wade asked. Probably at the poker tables at the Lucky Lady, Willa said, her voice barely audible. Wade offered her his hand. Come with me. Let me show you what kindness looks like. Those words, spoken with such simple sincerity, broke something open inside Willa. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them, and she found herself placing her raw, damaged hand in his. His grip was warm and careful, as if she were something precious that might break. They walked out of the saloon together into the bright afternoon sunshine, and Willa had to squint against the light. When was the last time she had seen daylight? She worked in darkness and lived in darkness and had become darkness herself. Wade led her down the dusty main street of Oklahoma City, past the general store and the bank and the church, to a modest boarding house run by a kind-faced woman named Mrs. Patterson. I need a room for this lady, Wade said. Somewhere safe and clean with a lock on the door. I will pay for a month in advance. Mrs. Patterson took one look at Willa's bruised face and understood immediately. Of course. Room 7 at the top of the stairs. It has a good strong lock and overlooks the back garden. She handed Willa a key with a gentle smile. There is a bath down the hall, dear. Help yourself to the soap and towels. Willa clutched the key like a lifeline, still unable to fully comprehend what was happening. Wade paid Mrs. Patterson and then turned back to Willa. You are safe here, he said. I am going to go have a conversation with your husband. I will make sure he understands that you are under my protection now. Fear seized Willa's heart. He will hurt you. Marcus is mean when he drinks, and he is always drinking. I appreciate the warning, Wade said, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. But I have handled mean drunks before. You just rest and take care of yourself. I will come back to check on you tomorrow. After he left, Willa stood in the hallway holding the key, half convinced this was all a dream and she would wake up on the saloon floor. But Mrs. Patterson gently guided her upstairs, showed her the room with its clean bed and lace curtains, and helped her draw a hot bath. When Willa finally sank into the steaming water, she wept for an hour straight, washing away 6 years of accumulated pain and humiliation. Meanwhile, Wade found Marcus Vaughn exactly where Willa said he would be, drunk and losing badly at poker. He was a wiry man with mean eyes and a perpetual sneer, the kind of man who took pleasure in others' pain because his own life was so small. Wade waited until the hand was finished, then tapped Marcus on the shoulder. I need a word with you outside. Marcus turned, swaying slightly. Who the hell are you? The man who paid off your debt at the saloon, Wade said evenly. The man who is going to make sure you never lay a hand on your wife again. Recognition dawned in Marcus's bleary eyes, followed quickly by rage. He stood up fast, knocking over his chair. You got no right interfering between a man and his wife. I have every right to stop a coward from beating a woman, Wade replied, his voice still calm but with an edge of steel beneath it. Marcus threw a wild punch that Wade easily avoided. In one smooth motion, Wade grabbed the smaller man's wrist, twisted it behind his back, and marched him out the back door into the alley. Once they were away from witnesses, Wade released him and stepped back. Here is how this is going to work, he said. Willa is done with you. You are going to leave her alone. If I hear that you have gone anywhere near her, if you so much as speak her name, I will make you regret it in ways you cannot imagine. Do you understand? Marcus spat on the ground. She is my wife. I own her. No man owns another person, Wade said, his jaw tightening. That is where you are wrong. Willa is a free woman now, and she is going to stay that way. Marcus lunged at him then, pulling a knife from his boot. Wade had expected this. He sidestepped, grabbed Marcus's knife hand, and delivered a hard punch to the man's solar plexus that dropped him to his knees, gasping for air. The knife clattered to the ground. Wade picked it up and tossed it onto a nearby roof. You are pathetic, he said quietly. What kind of man finds his courage in hurting someone smaller and weaker than himself? You are not a man at all. You are just a scared little boy who never grew up. He left Marcus wheezing in the dirt and walked back to the boarding house as the sun began to set, painting the Oklahoma sky in shades of orange and purple. He found Mrs. Patterson in her kitchen and explained the situation more fully. She nodded knowingly. I will keep an eye on the girl, she promised, and I will get word to Sheriff Collins. He does not take kindly to men who beat their wives, even if the law is not always on the woman's side. That night, Willa lay in the clean bed wearing a borrowed nightgown from Mrs. Patterson, staring at the ceiling and trying to process everything that had happened. She kept expecting Marcus to break down the door, but the only sounds were the peaceful creaks of the house settling and the distant call of a night bird. She touched the bruise on her jaw, then the tender spots on her ribs, cataloging her injuries the way she always did. But for the first time in 6 years, she allowed herself to imagine a future where there would be no new bruises, where she might heal completely. The next morning, true to his word, Wade returned. He knocked softly on her door, and when she opened it, he was holding a package wrapped in brown paper. I took the liberty of buying you some supplies, he said, looking slightly uncomfortable. Mrs. Patterson helped me figure out what you might need. I hope I did not overstep. Inside the package, Willa found a simple but beautiful calico dress in a soft blue color, undergarments, a warm shawl, sturdy boots, a hairbrush, lavender soap, and hand salve. The thoughtfulness of it made her throat tight with emotion. I cannot accept all this, she whispered. I have no way to pay you back. I do not want payment, Wade said. I just want to see you comfortable and safe. He paused, then added, would you take a walk with me? I thought you might like to see the town without being afraid. Willa hesitated, old fears rising up, but something in Wade's patient, kind expression gave her courage. She nodded. Let me change first. The dress fit perfectly, and when Willa looked at herself in the small mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. She had forgotten she could look like anything other than a beaten animal. She brushed her dark hair until it shone and pinned it back neatly, then met Wade downstairs. His face lit up when he saw her, a genuine warm smile that reached his eyes. You look lovely, he said simply, and she believed he meant it. They walked through Oklahoma City together in the spring morning sunshine. Wade pointed out various landmarks, told her funny stories about his cattle drive, asked her gentle questions about herself that did not touch on painful subjects. Slowly, gradually, Willa began to relax. They stopped at the general store, where Wade insisted on buying her a peppermint stick, something she had not tasted since childhood. The sweetness exploded on her tongue, and she actually laughed, a rusty sound that surprised them both. There it is, Wade said softly, his eyes crinkling at the corners. I knew there was light inside you still. Over the next few weeks, Wade came to visit Willa every day. Sometimes they would walk together through town or sit in Mrs. Patterson's garden, where Willa was slowly regaining strength and color. He never pressured her, never asked for anything, just offered his steady, reassuring presence. He told her about growing up on his father's ranch in the Texas Hill Country, about losing his mother to fever when he was 12, about the years he spent learning the cattle business from the ground up. "My pa always said that character is built in how you treat people who cannot fight back," Wade said one afternoon as they sat beneath a cottonwood tree. "He taught me that real strength is about protecting others, not dominating them." Willa was quiet for a long moment, pulling at the grass between her fingers. "I forgot what kindness looked like," she finally said. "My father was not a kind man. He sold me to Marcus when I was 17 because he needed money for whiskey. I thought that was just how the world worked. That men took and women endured. That is not how it has to be," Wade said gently. "I know it is what you have experienced, but I promise you there are good people in this world. There are men who know how to love without hurting. There are families built on respect and trust instead of fear." His words planted seeds in the barren soil of Willa's heart, fragile green shoots of hope that she was almost afraid to acknowledge. But as days turned into weeks, those shoots grew stronger. She began to smile more easily, to speak without that constant tremor of fear in her voice. The bruises faded from her skin, and though the deeper scars would take longer to heal, she was healing. Marcus tried twice to get near her. The first time, Sheriff Collins intervened, warning him to stay away. The second time, Wade happened to be there, and one hard look from him sent Marcus scurrying off like the coward he was. Eventually, Marcus left Oklahoma City altogether, heading west in search of easier marks and cheaper whiskey, and Willa felt a weight lift from her shoulders. One evening in late April, Wade took Willa to a church social. She was terrified at first, convinced that everyone would see her as damaged goods, as Marcus's worthless wife. But Wade stayed close, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back, a protective presence that helped her brave the crowd. To her surprise, the townspeople were welcoming. Several women approached her with genuine warmth, inviting her to join their sewing circle or book club. She was not the pariah she had feared being. She was simply a woman given a second chance. They danced together that night, a simple country waltz, and Willa felt something shift inside her chest. Wade held her carefully as if she were precious, his eyes never leaving her face. "You are the strongest person I have ever met," he said quietly as they swayed to the music. "To survive what you survived and still have kindness in your heart, still be able to smile and laugh, that takes incredible courage." "I did not feel strong," Willa admitted. "I felt broken." "Maybe we are all broken in some way," Wade replied. "But broken things can be mended, and sometimes they are stronger in the mended places." That night, walking back to the boarding house under a canopy of stars, Wade stopped suddenly and turned to face her. "Willa, I need to tell you something, and I want you to feel free to say no. There is no pressure, no expectation, but I would be lying if I did not admit that I have developed feelings for you, deep feelings. You have become the most important person in my life." Willa's heart hammered in her chest, but it was not fear. It was something else, something warm and terrifying and wonderful all at once. "I have feelings for you too," she whispered, "but I am afraid. I do not know how to be in a relationship that does not involve pain. What if I am too damaged? What if I cannot be what you need?" Wade took both her hands in his touch gentle and warm. "You are not damaged, Willa. You are wounded, and wounds heal. As for what I need, I just need you to be yourself. I need you to be honest with me, to communicate when you are scared or hurting. I need you to give me the chance to prove that love does not have to hurt. That is all I ask." She looked up into his face, into those storm blue eyes that had shown her nothing but kindness since the day they met, and she made a choice to be brave. a choice to believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved happiness. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I want to try." Wade's face broke into a smile so bright it could have rivaled the sun, and he cupped her face tenderly in his hands, giving her every opportunity to pull away. When she did not, when she leaned into his touch, he kissed her softly, reverently, a kiss that spoke of promise and protection, and a love that would never demand more than she could give. The weeks that followed were a revelation. Wade courted Willa properly, with flowers and sweets and long conversations that stretched into the night. He introduced her to his friends, respected cattlemen and their wives who welcomed her into their circle. He showed her the ranch his father had left him, 3,000 acres of prime grazing land about 15 miles outside Oklahoma City, with a sturdy house and barns and endless sky. "This could be our home," he said one day, as they stood on the porch looking out at the rolling prairie. "If you will have me. I know we have not known each other long, but I have never been more certain of anything in my life. I love you, Willa. I want to spend every day showing you what love is supposed to look like." Willa felt tears rolling down her cheeks, but they were good tears, cleansing tears. "Yes," she said, her voice strong and clear. "Yes, I will marry you." They were wed in June of 1882 in the small church in Oklahoma City with Mrs. Patterson crying happy tears in the front row and half the town in attendance. Willa wore a simple white dress that Wade had commissioned from the finest seamstress in the territory, and she carried wildflowers that he had picked for her that morning. When she walked down the aisle toward him, she was not the hollow-eyed ghost who had scrubbed saloon floors 4 months earlier. She was radiant, alive, transformed by love and kindness into the woman she was always meant to be. Their wedding night was gentle and patient, with Wade taking every care to make sure she felt safe and cherished. He erased the bad memories slowly, replacing them with tenderness and passion, and a deep, abiding love that made Willa's heart feel too full for her chest. She learned that intimacy could be beautiful, that her body was not just something to be used, but something to be celebrated and honored. Life on the ranch suited Willa in ways she had never imagined. She took to the work naturally, helping Wade with the horses, learning to cook hearty meals for the ranch hands he employed, planting a vegetable garden that flourished under her careful attention. She discovered she had a gift with animals, a patience and gentleness that made even the most skittish horses calm under her touch. Wade watched her bloom like a flower in the sun, and his heart swelled with pride and love. They hired a young woman named Sarah to help with the housework, a girl who reminded Wade of Willa in some ways, quiet and afraid, running from her own demons. Willa took her under her wing, showing her the same kindness Wade had shown her, teaching her that she had value and worth beyond what cruel people had told her. It felt good to help someone else, to pass forward the gift she had been given. That first winter was harsh, with blizzards that buried the ranch under feet of snow. But inside their home, Willa and Wade built a warmth that had nothing to do with the fireplace. They would sit together in the evenings, her head on his shoulder, reading aloud from books or playing cards or simply talking about their dreams for the future. Wade told her he wanted children someday if she was willing, but only when she was ready. There was no pressure, only love and patience. In the spring of 1883, Willa realized she was pregnant. The news filled her with equal parts joy and terror. What if she could not be a good mother? What if she passed on the damage she had received? Wade held her while she cried out her fears, then lifted her chin so she could see his face. "You are going to be an amazing mother," he said firmly, "because you know what it is like to be hurt, and you will never let our child feel that way. You will love fiercely and protect courageously, and our child will be the luckiest kid in the world." Their son was born in November of 1883, a healthy, squalling baby with Wade's blue eyes and Willa's dark hair. They named him Thomas, after Wade's father, and Willa felt her heart expand in ways she did not know were possible. Holding her baby for the first time, she vowed that he would never know violence or cruelty, that she would spend every day of her life making sure he grew up knowing he was loved and valued and safe. Wade was a devoted father, changing diapers and walking the floor with Thomas during colicky nights, and looking at his son with such wonder that it made Willa fall in love with him all over again. She watched her husband teach their boy to walk, to ride, to be gentle with smaller creatures, to stand up for those who could not stand up for themselves. Wade was showing Thomas what it meant to be a man, a real man, one who measured his strength by his character rather than his fists. When Thomas was 2, Willa gave birth to twin daughters, Emma and Grace, who had their mother's delicate features and their father's easy smile. The ranch house filled with laughter and chaos and love, so much love that sometimes Willa had to stop and marvel at the life she had built. This was real. This was hers. No one could take it away. She stayed in touch with Mrs. Patterson, visiting her often and bringing the children to see their honorary grandmother. She learned that Marcus had died in a bar fight in Denver, drunk and alone, and while she felt a momentary pang of sadness for the waste of a life, she also felt released from the last shadow of her past. She was truly free now. The years rolled by in a golden haze of happiness. Willa and Wade's ranch prospered, becoming known throughout Oklahoma Territory for its quality cattle and fair treatment of workers. They employed several families, providing good wages and safe housing, creating a community built on mutual respect. Willa started a school on the property for the ranch children, teaching them to read and write and do arithmetic, giving them opportunities she had never had. Thomas grew into a fine young man, tall and strong like his father, with a gentle heart that made Willa proud. He was 18 in 1901, helping Wade manage the ranch, courting a sweet girl from town named Margaret. The twins were 15, beautiful and bright, planning to attend the new women's college that had opened in Oklahoma City. One evening in the summer of 1901, Wade and Willa sat on their porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of crimson and gold. They were both in their 40s now, their hair touched with gray, their faces lined by years of laughter and sun. Wade reached over and took Willa's hand, threading his fingers through hers just as he had done countless times before. "You remember the day we met?" he asked softly. Willa smiled, squeezing his hand. "I remember thinking you were either an angel or a madman, spending $50 to get me out of that saloon." "Best money I ever spent," Wade said, bringing her hand to his lips and kissing her knuckles. "You know what I see when I look at you?" "What?" Willa asked, turning to face him in the fading light. "I see the strongest, most courageous woman who ever lived. I see the love of my life. I see the mother of my children and the keeper of my heart. I see my partner, my best friend, my everything. I see a woman who took her brokenness and turned it into beauty. You inspire me every single day, Willa. I hope you know that." Tears sparkled in Willa's eyes, but they were happy tears, the kind she had learned to embrace. "I see my savior," she said simply. "The man who showed me that kindness exists in this world. The man who taught me how to love and be loved. You gave me my life back, Wade. You gave me everything." "We gave each other everything," Wade corrected gently. "That is how love works, not taking but giving, not hurting but healing." "You healed me just as much as I healed you, Willa. Before you, I was just going through the motions of life. You gave me purpose and meaning and a reason to be better every day." They sat in comfortable silence as the stars began to appear overhead, one by one, like promises written in light. Inside the house, they could hear their children laughing together, preparing supper, living the secure and happy lives that Wade and Willa had built for them. This was the legacy of their love, generations of kindness rippling outward from that single moment in a saloon when a cowboy had looked at a broken woman and seen someone worth saving. In 1905, Thomas married Margaret in a beautiful ceremony at the ranch, and within the year they presented Wade and Willa with their first grandchild, a bright-eyed boy named William. Willa held her grandson and marveled at how far she had come from that terrified girl scrubbing floors. She had not just survived, she had thrived. She had built something beautiful from the ashes of her pain. Emma became a teacher, opening a school for girls in Oklahoma City, while Grace married a kind lawyer and became active in the women's suffrage movement. Both daughters were strong, confident women who knew their worth, and Willa took deep satisfaction in knowing she had broken the cycle of abuse. Her children would never know what she had endured. They would only know love. As Wade and Willa grew older, their love only deepened. They remained active on the ranch well into their 60s, Wade still riding the fence lines and Willa still tending her garden. They took long walks together in the evenings, hand in hand, talking about everything and nothing. Their hair turned white, their steps grew slower, but their hearts remained young and full of the same passion that had brought them together all those years ago. On their 30th wedding anniversary in 1912, Wade surprised Willa with a trip to Colorado, where they stayed in a fine hotel and danced in a grand ballroom just as they had at that church social 3 decades earlier. "You are even more beautiful now than you were at 23, Wade whispered in her ear as they swayed to the music. "Every year with you has been a gift." "You saved my life," Willa said, resting her head on his shoulder. "I was dying inside, piece by piece, day by day. You brought me back. You showed me what kindness looks like, and you never stopped showing me. Every single day you choose to love me. That is the greatest gift anyone has ever given me." "Loving you has always been the easiest thing in the world," Wade replied, kissing the top of her head. "You made it easy by being exactly who you are." They returned to the ranch renewed and happy, surrounded by their growing family. Thomas and Margaret had 3 children now. Emma had adopted 2 orphan sisters she was teaching, and Grace had twin boys who were the spitting image of their grandfather. The ranch house was constantly full of grandchildren and laughter and life, exactly as Wade and Willa had always dreamed. One crisp autumn morning in 1920, Wade and Willa rode out to their favorite spot on the ranch, a high meadow overlooking miles of rolling prairie. They were both in their 60s now, moving slower but still strong, still together. They dismounted and sat in the tall grass, watching the clouds drift by overhead. "You have any regrets?" Wade asked, his arm around Willa's shoulders. She thought about it carefully, then shook her head. "Not a single one. Not even the hard years before I met you, because they led me to this. They taught me to recognize goodness when I found it. They made me appreciate every moment of happiness. Do you have regrets?" "Only that I did not find you sooner," Wade said with a smile. "But I have learned that timing is everything. We found each other exactly when we were supposed to. You needed someone to show you kindness, and I needed someone to remind me why kindness matters. We were perfectly matched from the start." Willa leaned into him, breathing in the familiar scent of leather and soap and home. "I love you more than words can express," she said softly. "Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for loving me." "Thank you for letting me," Wade replied, tilting her face up for a tender kiss. "Thank you for being brave enough to take my hand that day. Thank you for building this life with me. Thank you for being my wife, my partner, my heart." They sat there until the sun began to set, two souls who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful together. Their story was not about a prince rescuing a damsel. It was about a kind man offering help to someone who needed it, and a brave woman choosing to accept that help and rebuild her life. It was about healing and growth, and the transformative power of genuine love. As the years continued to pass, Wade and Willa remained devoted to each other and to their family. They celebrated birthdays and anniversaries, christenings and weddings, welcoming each new generation with open arms and open hearts. They watched Oklahoma Territory become a state in 1907, saw the world change in ways they could never have imagined, but through it all, their love remained constant. In their 70s, they still sat together on the porch every evening, holding hands and watching the sunset. Their children and grandchildren would visit regularly, and Willa loved nothing more than being surrounded by her family, this beautiful legacy of love that had grown from one cowboy's simple act of kindness 40-some years earlier. "You know what the best part is?" Willa said one evening, her hand in Wade's as always. "What is that, my love?" Wade asked, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "Every single day you still show me what kindness looks like," she said, her eyes shining with tears of joy. "You never stopped, you never will." "That is who you are, Wade Corrigan, the kindest man I have ever known." "And you are the strongest woman I have ever known," Wade replied. "You took your broken spirit and you mended it with courage and determination. You built yourself back up, piece by piece. I may have offered you a hand, but you did the hard work. You healed yourself, Willa. I just had the privilege of being there to witness it." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the Oklahoma sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple and gold, Willa and Wade sat together in perfect contentment. They had built a good life, a life filled with love and laughter, with kindness and compassion, with family and purpose. They had shown their children and grandchildren what a healthy relationship looked like, breaking generational cycles and creating new patterns of love. Their story had started with cruelty and pain, but it had blossomed into something beautiful. It proved that no matter how broken someone might feel, healing is always possible. That kindness can change lives. That love, real love, never hurts. It lifts up, it supports, it cherishes, it endures. Wade and Willa lived well into their 80s, dying within months of each other in 1928, having spent over 45 years together. At Wade's funeral, their children and grandchildren spoke of a man who had shown them what integrity looked like, who had built his life on principles of fairness and compassion. At Willa's funeral, they spoke of a woman who had overcome unimaginable hardship to become a pillar of strength for her family and community. But the true measure of their lives was not in the eulogies or the tears. It was in the generations that followed, children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren who knew how to love without hurting, who understood that real strength comes from protecting others, who carried forward the legacy of kindness that Wade had shown Willa on that spring day in 1882. Their ranch remained in the family for generations, a testament to what two people could build when they worked together with mutual respect and genuine love. Above the fireplace in the main house hung a photograph of Wade and Willa taken on their 40th anniversary. Both of them, white-haired and wrinkled, but with eyes that sparkled with the same love and joy they had found in each other so many years before. Beneath the photograph was a plaque engraved with words that captured the essence of their story. "Kindness changes everything." It was the truth they had lived every day of their lives together. Wade had shown Willa what kindness looked like, and together they had built a life that radiated that kindness outward, touching everyone they encountered. They proved that it is never too late to choose love over fear, compassion over cruelty, hope over despair. Their love story became legend in Oklahoma, passed down through generations as an example of what true love should be. Not possessive or controlling, not painful or diminishing, but uplifting and freeing. A love that said, "I see you, I value you, I will protect you, I will cherish you for exactly who you are." In the end, that was what mattered most. Not the hardships they had overcome or the obstacles they had faced, but the love they had built and the kindness they had shared. Wade had reached out his hand to a broken woman in a saloon and offered her hope. Willa had been brave enough to take that hand and believe in the possibility of something better. Together, they had created a love story for the ages, one that proved that even the most shattered spirit can be healed by kindness, patience, and genuine love. Their legacy lived on in every descendant who chose compassion over cruelty, in every person who stood up for someone who could not stand up for themselves, in every act of kindness that rippled outward into the world. Wade and Willa's story was not just about two people falling in love. It was about the transformative power of choosing to be kind, even when the world has been unkind to you. It was about breaking cycles and building new futures. It was about proving that love, real love, heals all wounds. And in the hearts of everyone who knew them, Wade and Willa lived on forever, a reminder that no matter how dark the night, morning always comes. That no matter how broken you feel, you can be whole again. That somewhere out there, kindness exists, waiting to show you what love is really supposed to look like.